Okay, welcome back to another intuitive moment with Natino. I'm so in this particular one, I'm thinking, okay, so for the past couple months, not months, past couple weeks, but well, kind of months, I've like hearing about this Hantavirus, I've been thinking about the way in which because I think that something's happening. And the reason why I say that something's happening is because my circadian cycle has been off, similar to when it was off, like about a couple months before COVID-19 had happened, like about like 6 months, maybe 4 to 6 months, maybe even longer. I remember like I went through this pattern of not being able to sleep. And just stay up like because something was happening. And I can remember that same that same kind of feeling is happening now. So, I'm thinking that whatever happened in COVID-19 is about to happen now because the hantavirus seems to be following a similar pattern, not the same pattern, a similar pattern. Where now we're seeing reports of it, the virus is making its way to different countries, and we're seeing reports of, okay, something's happening, something's about to pop off, and I think that it's interesting, and I think that we should talk about it because intuitively I feel like something's about to happen. We know that the earth is changing in terms of the kinds of systematic structurings that are now, I guess, at the forefront. Capitalism is no longer taking, it's not no longer at the forefront of things. But I do think in another way that this is the earth trying to heal itself, right? This is the earth trying to do a new thing. Because I think that like in order for everybody to change, we have to have moments where we introspect. And if watch this, and if you don't interest if the majority of the world is consumed in consumerism and materialism, then um they're not the majority of them are not going to be interested in doing the work necessary to do the introspective work to make them better selves, right? These better people. I remember doing this TikTok. It's still in my drafts where I literally talked about the fact that there's something coming, something's about to happen, right? And this thing that's about to happen, it's happening because um the earth is trying to heal itself. Reparations for those people who are of African descent, that's happening. That's coming. Whether we want it to or not, that's happening. I recently there was a report in the Guardian talking about the amount of the lives of slaves that was lost in Barbados. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Okay, yes. It was posted about a week ago. It says the UK stole 25 million years of life and labor through slavery in Barbados. 25 million years of life was lost. The potential, so the earth, so in other words, the premature death. And I think this is important because we're talking about, and this is where so even in these intuitive moments, remember I talked, at least in the first moment, we talked about, um, uh, how the intellect should be submitted to the intuition. So for example, and I want to let me make this more salient. So in the Bible, when it talks about the master and slave, the master is actually the intuition, and the slave is supposed to be the intellect. Right. And what's happened is the slave, we've switched places. The intellect has now tried to enslave the intuition, which is not the correct order. When it's talking about slavery in the Bible, that's actually not what, like, it's not talking about actual slavery. It's a symbolic kind of slavery, and it's a slavery where the intellect submits. So when it says wives submit to your husband, in this instance, the husband would be the intuition, and the wife would be the intellect. Again, these are things that so I talked about a conversation that I was having this is another part of the conversation that was had was about what we believe. And my belief, I'm more spiritual, right? I don't believe in the whole Christianity thing. The way that we practice it in the Bahamas and the way that we practice it around the world is a lot of times problematic. And it's because we're interpreting it very literally, and literal interpretations kill the life, or it sucks the life out of the symbolic or the unconscious nature of the of how the Bible was written and what the Bible actually stands for and represents. Remember, I told you in the first installment of these intuitive moments that that the unconscious speaks to us in symbols, dreams, symbolic language, right? um so symbols, symbolic language, metaphors. Yeah, that's the way that the unconscious speaks to us. And then the parallel I gave to you was look at the way that it shows up in our dreams, where people actually are representative of symbolic representations, right? And then we talked about hieroglyphics in Egypt, and the ways in which, you know, different communities, prehistoric, ancient, or what they call I can't remember. But the fact of the matter is that the Bible is written in symbolic language, so none of it should actually be taken literally. None of it, from Genesis straight to the New Testament, none of it should actually be taken literal. What we've had is that we've had people who have been dominated or ensnared by the slave, right? The slave again is the intellect, and what has happened is the intellect or the logic. This is where it comes in with scientific um empiricism. Scientific empiricism is the kind of thing that has dominated our thinking. That's one of the reasons why capitalism can kind of find a stable footing. If you take away empiricism, and you try to introduce another kind of scientific measurement that dominates in terms, and for example, in the social sciences and humanities, which function off of a more qualitative kind of analysis, not quantitative. With empiricism, you're focused on numbers. You're focused on these rigid kind of categories, and the intellect is the thing that does the categorizing and dividing. The intuition doesn't need categories; it just is, and that's why it's master above all, right? The intellect cannot beat or defeat the intuition. However, it hasn't stopped these people from trying to use their intellect to conquer nature, and that's the thing. So this idea that you can use your mind to conquer nature can never be conquered. Nature is nature is and always will be. Nature allows herself to be used in particular ways, but it will always fight back. That's the reason why we have climate change, because we've been trying to do these. We think that we're dominating and we're controlling. No, 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 no. Then nature says, okay, well, I'll show you exactly how what your actions have led to. And so, yeah, that's the kind of thinking I'm thinking about. Um, so yes, master and slave, 25 million years of life and labor, right? Um, this is particularly in Barbados. And I'm saying to you, the earth, something new is happening, something is coming. I don't think it's going to stop with the Hantavirus. I think it's going to be more, because what's happening is that whatever you believe in, and if you don't believe in anything, that's the thing. There's So I have this theory: nobody's actually an atheist, nobody's actually agnostic. The reason why people have those labels, of this, remember that the intellect is the categorization. The reason why people identify with that is because they're trying to work against these dominant, systematic, oppressive ways of being, which Christianity is a part of, right? Just like capitalism, patriarchy, Christianity is also very oppressive. It doesn't it obscures more than it elucidates. Um, and so when we think about that, when we think about what it means for the human race, or for humanity itself, the universe, God, Buddha, Allah, whatever you want to call it, Jesus, and this is again where I think I move a bit differently and I think a bit differently in terms of everybody else. I'm spiritual, but in spiritual, like it's spiritual, but also like I don't know. I believe. Here's the thing. So I don't think that like spirit cannot be separated from the secular. That's why I'm saying that nobody's actually an atheist, because whether you believe, like, God doesn't need you to believe in it, him, her. And here's the thing. So God has to be both male and female, right? So it has to be they. God has to be non-binary. God has to be, if there is such a thing, and it's not. I don't think when I think about God, I don't think about something that's beyond me or something external to me. I think of something that's within. Um, um, who was it? Oh, what is the name? The guy who wrote Anna Karenina. Um, Leo Tolstoy. He's a Russian philosopher. He says the kingdom of God is within you, right? And obviously that's the biblical, but he says the people look for it without. No, 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 no. It's within. It's within. So the whole idea of thinking that there's this external. No, 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 no. Whatever I'm searching for is within me. Whatever I need is within me. It's already packaged within me. I can find it within me. The difficulty is that we keep searching externally. Nothing external will ever be able to fulfill you. You have to go within. So going back to what we're talking about, the earth is trying to heal itself. We're moving into a new era where the universe, and I'm going to be using the universe as this kind of moniker, um, until I could get around, because it's going to take me a while for me to like lay out my philosophy of the psychic realm, or the spiritual realm, or the realm of the ancestors, and how that works. Because the spiritual realm, the psychic realm, the realm of the ancestors is also the intellectual realm, but they operate in different realms, or they operate in different ways, and you have different access points to them. You have to be initiated into these realms, right? Um, and when I talk about initiation, I'm talking about initiation into the wisdom that these realms and power that they hold. I'm talking about real power. I'm not talking about power given through materialism. That's not real power. I'm talking about power that comes from within. The power of the light, the power of wisdom, the power of knowledge, the power of understanding. That's actually the triune God, right? That's what I'm talking about. The triune God. When we talk about God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, we're talking about God the Father is wisdom, God the Son is knowledge, and God the Holy Spirit is understanding. These are all metaphors or symbols of these things. So what I was going to say was that scientists also found out, or well, they discovered empiric scientism discovered that the sun is a sentient being. Meanwhile, the people of Mexico, the indigenous people of Mexico, what they call now, the Mayans, the Incas, the Pueblo Indians, they all knew, right, and our African ancestors, they already knew that the sun was a sentient being. And if the sun is a sentient being, that means every plant, every animal is a sentient being. And although we use animals and we eat them, there are ways, I guess, to that they should be used and honored in us using them for our sustenance. And I don't think we've been able to do that because of capitalist, neoliberalist, fascist kind of understandings, and that have like plummeted us into these very barbaric and lacking empathy kind of ways of being and living in the world. So here again, we're talking about what needs to happen because the earth is out of balance. And this is where society is patriarchal and masculine focus, right? And so what has to happen is what I've been trying to communicate, at least through some of my messaging on TikTok and on Instagram. I talked about Instagram I talked about putting or about returning the divine or the feminine principle back to that glorious position. And by doing so, we're balancing the scales of justice. We're balancing the scales of the collective unconscious, of the unconscious itself. When we talk about masculinity and femininity, we're talking about masculinity, and the symbol of that would be consciousness, right? And the symbol for femininity would be unconsciousness, or these are metaphors again, right? You're talking about, so when I'm talking about these things, you have to think about them in that way. That when I'm saying that masculinity, I'm talking about consciousness, this kind of robustness, this kind of very rigid a way of doing things, this very illuminating kind of way that moves through um yeah. And when I'm talking about unconsciousness, we're talking about the femininity, that that even though we think of femininity as passive, it's not a passiveness into doing nothing. It's a passiveness into, I will wait for a time that is right, and when it's right, I will strike. Or I will wait for a time that is convenient, and it will show and manifest. It's a revealing. So in other words, like how truth is revealed, how um um reality unfolds, is the unfolding of reality, is the unfolding of the consciousness, right? It's there's no need to rush, right? There's no need to be categorized, there's no need to be rigid in it. It can function whether there's clarity or there's obscurity. um which is different from the way that consciousness and masculinity work. It needs clear, defined markers in order for it to feel empowered, in order for it to feel like it can do its work. And that's not the case for the unconscious. The unconscious is and was and will always be. In fact, consciousness comes out of unconsciousness. And to a degree, consciousness is God. Sorry, not consciousness. Unconsciousness, the vastness. If you do the relation, if you look at it, if you do the understanding, if you really come into to really like seeing what I'm talking about, the unconscious or the collective unconsciousness is God, is the universe, is nature, it is the thing that it is the thing that so one of the things that I remember reading from Carl, is either Carl Jung or some other scholar, they were saying that when we dream, our consciousness recedes into the unconscious. And there was a reference to how, if you go to the biblical model of the temple, where they are different, they have to do different rituals before they enter into the holies of holies, and they liken that to the REM sleep. I can't remember who said it, or which book I read it. It's been so many books that I've read. But this is the kind of thinking that I'm trying to work through and get us to understand. So going back to what I was talking about, something's happening, something's moving, the earth is moving, and what's happening is now things are changing and shifting to the point where you can no longer do what you did before. This is what I said in the TikTok I have yet to release, because I was a little bit scared. Like I don't want to be talking like moving from, I don't know, I've been trying to push, like I said, the whole, if you watch the first moment, the first intuitive moment, I've been trying to figure out how to move in this space and not lose the credibility that I already have. And to the point is like, fuck it, right? And so that's the issue. The issue is like, how do I move into this space? How do I begin to move intuitively so that the messages that I'm talking about, they transcend the intellect. They move past logic, and they cause you to now feel. You have to be willing to feel, and that's the difficulty, is because when you're moving out of intellect is not, this is where people will say, oh, take your feelings out of it. The issue I have with people who try to diminish or devalue emotions is that they don't understand that emotions make up everything that we do. You cannot take emotions out of ideas. Emotions are tantamount to ideas coming forward. I said to the person that I was having the conversation with, and I saw this, I can't remember again, but this came from another scholar, that we don't choose ideas actually choose us, right? And I also want to say here too, that we don't like, when I think about the God, like we think about one God, right? Like when we think about Zeus, Aphrodite, Atlas, all of those gods, I believe, are true, right? But they are gods. They're gods of feeling. They're gods of they're energetic gods, right? They are there are gods within the recesses of the collective unconscious, right, that come down from Mount Olympus and visit us and choose us. And in that way, when they choose us, they bring with them their ideas of how we should live, how we should conduct ourselves on the earth, right? And so what I'm talking about is moving from the unconscious or into the realm of the invisible and bringing it into the realm of visible, which is the consciousness, right? So yes, these things I'm talking about, and all of them I'm trying to structure and move in a way. So the thinking that I'm moving with is a depth psychologist kind of thinking. It's a transpersonal psychology, it's a transrational psychology. It's all of these things that I'm moving with. So this is based in scientific, but not empiricism. Right? Because empiricism does not have the capability to quantify anything in the psychic or spiritual realm because it is beyond empiricism, right? For example, you could count the skips or the beats of the heart, but you cannot quantify what the heart feels. And what I'm talking about is this is the physical beating heart. Right, and it's not just so we talk about the physical heart which pumps blood, but a lot of times when we're talking about the heart, we're talking about the heart of the mind, the heart of the psyche, right? It's that kind of thinking. It's this we're moving into these. It's very like you're moving into these other worlds. So when I'm talking about these things, I'm transcending rationality and I'm moving into the irrational. So this is irrational psychology, transpersonal, transrational, all of these things. This is depth psychology. This is analytical psychology. And even then you move out of those realms because the unconscious is too vast for you to ever think that you're going to categorize it. Even when you think you got a hold of it, there's still more of it that you have yet to know. And I know this one. What's his name? What's the name? The psychedelic. He has a book called Moksha. And in the book, let me see if I can find it. Moksha, book. Aldous Huxley is his name. That's it. Aldous Huxley. He was a psychologist, psychiatrist, and he dabbled or he focused mainly on the world of psychedelics and how they impact us. And he says that there are parts of the mind that can never be colonized. And so what I'm saying to you is that even when we think we have a grasp of it and we've in our intellect we've been able to grasp it, and the grasping of it doesn't have to mean colonization, but in the way that we've set it up in the systematic structure of the world, it often means colonization, brute force. It doesn't have to, but the point is that he says in that book that there are parts of the mind and parts of the psyche that can never be colonized. And so it's imperative. Well, what I've tried to do is I've tried to journey to those parts of the mind, right? And when I get to those parts of the mind, those are the spaces from which I theorize from. Those are the spaces from which I speak from. Those are the spaces from which I declare, I make manifest, or I give proclamation that I can't, because if you don't know, I like I said in the first part, psychic prophet, whatever you want to call it, I move in that, right? It is what it is. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care. That's not what I'm here, and I'm not here to explain that to you. I'm just here to do and be at this point, right? This is the reason why I'm creating this intuitive moments, right? Yeah, and so I think about all of these things. I think about the ways in which these critical moments are happening. They're happening in ways that are spurring us to look inside, right? So I think the Hantavirus, Haunta, is here to bring us to another point where we have to go within. It's forcing us to go within. And that's the thing. I don't think that a lot of us want to be forced to go inside, but you have to be forced, because if you don't do it willing, this is where James Baldwin has a saying that he has this thing that says, this is quote, he says, everything we do must be paid for. It must be paid for either willingly or unwillingly. But whatever you do in this body must be paid for. In other words, the scales must be balanced by the time as you close your eyes. everything you've done, whether good or bad, will be weighed, will be judged, and in that, you could call it karma, you could call it whatever you want to call it. It is calling you to do better, be better, and to move with the spirit of integrity, to move with the spirit of 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 justice, to move with the spirit of love. And so again, the earth is trying to rebalance herself, and it's rebalancing itself by talking about this reparations that's coming forward. That's one of the things that's happening for people of African descent. What's happening is that we're now going to hear our suffering and pain are going to finally be heard, right? It is going to be recognized. We're going to move into this space where every injustice will know, up until this point, and even probably going into the future, they like you people, generations are now going to pay for what they did. And see, this is what I was talking about. That again, the unconscious isn't, whether you acknowledge it or not as God, whether you acknowledge it as existing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need you to do that, right? So there are a few things that work like that. Wisdom works like that. Whether you know something or not, it doesn't matter. Wisdom is a thing. It's a God, right? It's a deity. It's one of the gods. Um um Knowledge is another god, right? Understanding is a god. So these are the gods that have been personified in Zeus, Hades, what's your name? Aphrodite, Medusa. All of these are gods. They're gods in the way, they're gods in terms of like these, the things that we think aren't alive are alive. Ideas, ideologies, they're living things. In one of the essays that I put, that I'm putting together, what's it called now? It's called not an egregore. That's what it's called. Egregore. Egregore. Yes. Or egregore. It's a concept in Western esotericism, of a non-physical entity or thought form that arises from collective thoughts and emotions of a distinct group of individuals. So these egregores, when people, so let's think about, okay, if you have an idea and everybody agrees with that, what forms is like this entity, this kind of God, this kind of thing, this kind of living, moving organism, the kind of it responds to its people. This is where people would also what they call it now, this is where people think that you have ghost hauntings, demons. This is where it comes, like egregore, yeah, egregore, um um like it's in that realm of, oh God, the ineffable, right? The ineffable is that which cannot be put into words. Right? It's in that realm. So a lot of them think of them as angelic beings, spiritual elite. Some of them think of them as demons, imps, smurfs, all these things, they come from that. This is from the magical kind of realm or thinking. They also can, this is where you have the Baphomet and the god, the man god or the man goat, like stuff like that. All of these, it's in that realm of esotericism, and theosophical thinking, right? Yeah, so I say that to say all of this. That what I'm trying to hit on, what I'm going after, what I'm trying to articulate, though I may be failing tremendously, because what I'm dealing with is the ineffable, right? Like I said, that which cannot easily be put into words. But what I'm trying to articulate is that the earth is moving. This is happening in the spiritual, the psychic, the intellectual realm, the invisible realms that are not easily perceptible. It's not easily perceptible to y'all. I could see. There are those of us who can see into this realm. If you have air, this is where the Bible says that, or Jesus says that, let he that hath ears to see, ears to hear and eyes to see. All of us don't have eyes to see and ears to hear. I hear things, I see things, and I see them earlier than most people, right? So by the time it hits people, I've already seen it. What's happening is, the earth is trying to rebalance. Not trying, it's rebalancing. Justice is coming for the oppressed. I said this earlier on my Twitter. And we're moving into a new century, a new season. I want to say century because we've been dealing like we've had a lot of oppressive kind of systems just responding and moving about in this era. And I think we're moving to a place now where things are changing, things are moving. The earth is calling for those who want to be a part of this next journey. Also, think about this. This is the right reason why people are dying as well. You die if you don't want to make the change. The earth is calling for, this is where the chosen people, and I'm not talking about 144,000 people is not, that's like, I will get to that at some point, but everybody has the opportunity to be part of this next move. But what's happening is spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, it's moving people. It's moving you to now align with your higher self. You can no longer stay where you're at. And it's going to force you to change, is what I've been saying and what I did say in the TikTok. I may just post it after this video just to show you, because I like to, I like to make sure people know, like, this is what I do, right? So spirit is now forcing us to change. You don't have a choice in this matter. This is why when people say, "Oh, you can't force people to change," that's a lie. Spirit forces us to change. Life is a God, right? Life has a way of working, and it will force you to change. Life is life supervises wisdom, right? Life has a supervisor. You just can't see them, right? They're not a physical being, but life has to submit itself to something higher than it. Right? Life doesn't determine who gets life. Something outside of life has to determine that. So life in and of itself is a God, or it is a living entity. That's my point, right? And so this is, I've reached the 30-minute mark, but what I'm trying to say is that you can no longer operate, and I'm going to end this here. You can no longer operate the way that you once did before. Spirit is calling us, the universe is calling us to change. I've seen it happen in my life, and I'm usually early. Remember I just said that I usually see things before they happen. So I'm usually early. There'll be waves of this happening for people. And for those of them that miss the bus or that refuse to change, they're going to die. That's something that I also said. A lot of people are going to die. That's just the facts. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. Again, remember wisdom, knowledge, understanding. You go back to Proverbs 8. This is why I despise that whole virtuous woman shit. That don't shut the fuck up, right? But yeah, that's particularly to the Bahamas and maybe Caribbean as well. But yeah, these are the things that I'm talking about. That the earth is calling us and moving us into a different space, and we have to be willing to go along, and to change. You have to adapt. Some of the people that will die will be families, family members, close people that we love, friends, coworkers. Within the queer community in the Bahamas, I've seen within the last couple of months, there have been literal deaths happening, and people just say, when they throw their hands up and they say, well, no one knows the day nor the hour. You just have to be ready. No, bitch. Like, there are warnings. Life gives you warnings. Life tells you what you need to do. And you die when you don't make the necessary changes or adaptations. You die when you stop listening to the intuition that's within you. All of us have intuition. All of us have the nudging. So in other words, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, he's speaking to everyone, whether she's speaking to everyone. The gods are speaking to everyone. The question is do you have ears to hear? Do you have eyes to see? And they want everyone to have eyes and ears to see. And in fact, everyone does have ears. Some of us just have ears that are clogged and closed. Some of us have eyes. We're blind. This is where amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. That's actually what it's talking about. The blind. It's an it's an intuitive blindness, right? And in fact, we don't see out through these eyes. We actually see, like, I'm gonna get to that. Stay with me through these intuitive moments. Um, yeah, these are the things that I've been wanting to talk about, and I don't know. I'm being forced to do this, right? Because I didn't want to do this because I know y'all start thinking like, I remember I was telling you I was trying to balance and stay with the credit because like how do you explain this to people? How do you talk about this shit? You like it's ineffable. That's why when if you're a writer, you're taking the ineffable and you're making it effable. You're making it visible. You're taking the invisible that you feel, that you see, that you think, and you're making it visible by writing it into the earth. In other words, we're talking about the process of creation. Um, so yeah, I think that that's it for this because I'm at 34 minutes. I'm gonna end it here. Um, like, share, and subscribe. This has been great. I hope that you learned something. This has been another intuitive moment with Natino Thompson. Until next time.